Hello, Fearless Gamers! Matt here for Fearless Games, and today we're going to do a little bit of a different video. I'm going to be talking about the Dark Heresy role-playing game. Particularly a particular moment that happened to my character in the last campaign I was in a game of Deathwatch. Now, for those who don't know, RPGs, the D&D stuff, characters on paper and rolling dice to determine stats and attacks and using, in essence, using the power of your imagination to display out a whole story scenario and acting in it as a character. Dark Heresy takes that concept and puts it in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, where you can play as a dude. Just a normal dude. You could buy, So in essence, your highest ranking you can go in terms of armies is Imperial Guard. They have been adding more books. I think now they have... Wikipedia has posted rules using another book's stats to determine how to make an Eldar player, and how to change the different classes to tailor them to Eldar craftworldiness, or outcasts, or however type of Eldar you wish to play. I believe there's rules now with the Tau, and so it's quite possible someone's going to crack the code on how to make a Tau player soon. And they also then added the Space Marine edition, which is the Deathwatch. Now, for those who don't know, Deathwatch is essentially like a civil service job. That's a temporary thing. What it is basically to basically help root out heresy and perform special missions for the Inquisition. There's this group called the Deathwatch. And the Deathwatch is where all Space Marines send out one or two of their members who are exceptionally phenomenal Space Marines to participate in the Deathwatch. This is a short time period, and it's, from my understanding, a one-time thing. If you are part of the Deathwatch, after you've served, you don't serve the Deathwatch again. Sort of like jury duty, but without the, every 6 years or something like that, or however jury duty works. I've only done it once so far. So that's the primary aspect of Deathwatch. Now, what changes the Deathwatch is you have the Space Marine paints his armor completely black except for his left arm. That becomes silver, and he gets the stamp of the Inquisition on his left shoulder pad. His chapter symbol is moved to his right shoulder pad, and the inner piece of the shoulder pad is painted the color of their armor to appease the machine spirit of their armor. Apparently the armors don't like getting painted over, so to satisfy them, they have one piece that's still their original color, so they're happy at that point. So the only really easy one is like the Raven Guard and the Black Templar, whose armor's always black. And so this was basically a game of Deathwatch, ran by the Wild Card. And so we had a bunch of characters together. There was the clown who was playing, Matt, who was playing a tactical Black Templar who was based off a chaplain that he has in his Black Templar army. This was essentially his story before he ascended to become a chaplain. We then had the Stark Lord, who was playing an Apothecary Raven Guard. We then had Matt the Clown's girlfriend, who was a, I want to say Imperial Fist Tech Marine. I'm not sure if it was Imperial Fist or Crimson Fist or what. I just know that it was the chapter that had ties to, that was the main chapter for the Black Templar. So her chapter and the Black Templar chapters are basically battle brothers, and share the same Gemesteed and Primarch. So I think it was Imperial Fist. I could be completely wrong on that one. Then we had one of our friends who was a Blood Angel Devastator. Then there was her fiancé, who was a Black Templar Tech Marine, not Tech Priest, boy. Then my girlfriend, who was a Assault Marine Black Templar, and then me, who was a Dark Angel Librarian. So, yeah, I was kind of feeling like a fish out of water because I was surrounded by all these Black Templars who hate Psychers. The only person that really was on my side was the Blood Angel, because, you know, the Blood Angel, it uses Psychic Dreadnoughts, which is awesome. Which, before the beginning of the game, I found out that there was a way to do a Librarian Dreadnought, and I asked the wild card, if it were plausible, could I become a Librarian Dreadnought? And he decided, you know, yeah, he doesn't see what, you know, the Blood Angels did it, he can't see that the other chapters haven't been able to do it. So he looked at the rules and altered some of the requirements to make them more Dark Angel-y over the Blood Angel one. And so, this is the model that I made for the campaign. We all had our own Space Marine models, which is another thing I kind of liked about this, because it got me to create a new Space Marine model. This one was using the Emperor's Champion model. I was using him for a color scheme piece, and I was going to be using him as a Librarian, because I liked how the metal pieces looked, and his armor, and it kind of gave me this, like, you know, this is something really awesome. And so I green stuffed a bunch of robes on him. This was probably the first attempt I've done in green stuffing robes for in the last 8 years or so. And I was very happy with how it came out. And this is what I started to try and play around with lighting and highlights on this model. So this is kind of where I started deciding to try and really put 110% into a model painting. And so the character was part of the Death Watch because he accidentally discovered the Fallen. He did this by when he was on a Space Hulk with a bunch of Dark Angels, taking care of a bunch of traitor units that were using the Space Hulk to sneak past the defenses on a space station, and they were going to invade it. So my character went ill and got separated from the group. And at that point, he discovered the leader of these heretics, and that's when the leader basically Expedition dropped everything about the Fallen and how they went to Chaos and all this other stuff. And my character then subdued him and said, that he's going to pay for his crimes against the Emperor and all this stuff. And the Dark Angels came and were like, oh, well, let's tell you what's going on, and, made sure that I wasn't, that this tainted me or anything like that. And at that point, Grandmaster, the Interrogator Chaplain Osmodai came to me and said, you're going to be participating in the Death Watch. And that's where I added to the other Space Marines. The general plot of the game was, there was this Space Hulk that came out of the warp, and when we went to look inside of it, we found a lot of weird, crazy, Tyranid-like creatures, as well as the orcs. And at that point, we were noticing that there was an Inquisitor on that Space Hulk at one point when the ship first went to the warp, and then it came back out. It wasn't a Space Hulk, it was just a battle barge that went into the warp, did come back, and came back out. Sort of like an Event Horizon-like scenario. And so, at the same time, these Tyranids were going crazy on this other planet that we were sent to investigate that, as well as secure an Imperator class and an Imperator class Warlord Titan. And the forces of Chaos, I believe the Iron Warriors, were also on the planet trying to get to the Titan as well. That's when we discovered that Inquisitor Thran was doing a lot of crazy experiments, and we came to the conclusion that he was most likely working with the Chaos Space Marines to some strange goal. And as the game proceeded, we then discovered that Inquisitor Thran has been attempting to make the Tyranids be under control by making this brain box thing, and props for those who catch that, who know what I'm talking about. And using this, he wanted to use the Tyranids to help control the Imperium, to destroy the Imperium's enemies. And this was frowned down upon, and Thran was just like, what? This is crazy, you're stupid, and joined Chaos too, because Chaos was willing to help fund his research. So him and the Iron Warriors were working, and we basically run into this Space Hulk that he is working on. And we go through the Space Hulk and discover that there's like demon pits in here summoning up demons. There's greater demons of Zenich and Nurgle and Orn and Slaanesh running around, and it was essentially a giant fort that he was planning to move in, take over the sector that we were in, and then proceed to use the Tyranids to attack whoever he considered was his enemy at that point. So we run through the Space Hulk, and thankfully we had a army of Grey Knights that were keeping the Chaos Demons at bay for us. So we were able to avoid that whole mess, because greater demons, not fun, especially in Dark Heresy. And so we then managed to find Inquisitor Thran. We then engaged him, me and the clown's characters chased down Inquisitor Thran, and the clown gunned him down, while the rest of the party took care of the Tyranids that were brainboxed and attacking them under his orders. So then, at that point, me and the clown looked at this box, and there was a heat signature coming from that box. We pop it open, and we see this funky-looking device, which I immediately recognize as a void grenade. And I was like, oh crap, everybody retreat, get away, this thing's a void grenade, it's set to blow. At that point, my character remembers that there was a demon pit that was on the Space Hulk, and I had the highest priority, like, because of my tone to the warp, I was able to pick up the grenade without it really affecting me right now, because, like, when the clown's character went to pick it up, it started to burn his armor. So I grabbed it and bolted down the hallway, and I called up the Inquisitor and the Grey Knights, telling them to tactically withdraw from the area because of the void grenade, and that I was in the process of removing the grenade itself. And the clown chased after me to make sure no one got in my way. So he was sitting there popping off dudes that were running interference. And I got to the demon pit, and I chuck the grenade into it. And at that point, the grenade detonates. The clown's character, the Master Ambrose, braces himself, and he's able to hold off against the pull of the warp and the black hole that was just created by this explosion. Me being right in front of it, I accidentally failed, and I had to burn a faith point in order to survive, and I ended up getting catapulted out of the area. And the demon pit closed, and the whole situation was neutralized. This was probably one of the most epic moments for my character in the game, because, you know, I was running with the grenade and it was a ticking clock. I could just see the counter going down in my head as I was running and throwing the grenade down. I went as cheesy as possible. I screamed, you know, "Lion, give me strength," as I chucked it. And I said, you know, the Lion is my strength, the Emperor is my shield, my faith will not falter, and I shall not fail this day. And it was just this whole grand, like, it felt like an ending to a movie to me at this point. And because of the act of heroism that my character performed and the clown's character's act of bravery, we were given Terminator honors. So now we're allowed to have Terminator armor if we want to, which is awesome, because now I can actually become a Deathwing member, which I plan to do if we continue on with this game, because the wildcard said, you know, if I run another game, I'll let you guys play the same characters. And so that was probably the most awesome thing that's happened to me in my only ever game of Dark Heresy. What I like about the system is it's simple. Character creation does take a bit, but it's easy to follow. Usually I have to read the rules 3 or 4 times, but I was able to just read each rule and go through it one step at a time, and I was able to run through and shell out a character in about 30-45 minutes. What makes the process a little bit easier is the fact that you don't have to deal with equipment. Your class dictates what equipment you get, and all the other equipment you attain in-game through requisition points. In essence, they go, you're going on this mission, it's extremely high risk, so you've got 100 requisition points a person. Everyone can then spend their requisition points to gear up. Any left over can be given to other characters so they can gear up even more. excuse me, like my character, because he had a force weapon, pretty much had everything that he needed, so he would usually just buy a couple of rounds or a plasma rifle, or a plasma gun, and then give everyone else his, points so they could beef themselves up a little more, because I was a close combat character, and I really didn't need much of anything, because a force weapon is nasty in this game. And plus I had all my psychic powers, which is a lot of fun to do. Probably the biggest blunder that I did in the game was I accidentally summoned a Demon Prince when trying to stop a weird boy from casting, like, his equivalent to Smite. I really wanted him to stop, so I supercharge the power as much as I can, and I let it go off, but I accidentally summoned a Demon Prince who almost killed all of us, because Demon Princes are nasty. What I also like about this is you feel epic from the start. A lot of times in these games with role-playing, you kind of build yourselves with these, awesome backstories because your characters are main characters. They have a backstory, they have a reason for being awesome. And a lot of times you'll find yourself falling short unless the dice really love you. But in this game, it's easy to perform acts of awesomeness because of the way the rules work and how Space Marines operate in the game. Because technically, a level 1 Space Marine is equivalent to a level 10 Dark Heresy character. So they could just go through practically anything. We went through like 150 dudes and didn't take a single point of damage. That's how epic Space Marines can be. But on the flip side, when we do fight another Space Marine or something that's supposed to kill Space Marines, it becomes that much more intense and that much more dangerous and that much more challenging. And you feel the epicness that's been written in all the stories and the books about the Space Marines. So if you're a fan of role-playing games, give Dark Heresy a try, because I think you'll enjoy it a lot. It uses the percentile system, which means you have a stat at, like, say, 50. That means you have to roll 2d6, 2d10, or a d100 if you have one and crazy like me. And you roll it, and you have to roll under that stat. And if you roll under, you pass. The different degrees, every count of 10 below the target score that you passed by, the greater the success is. And stuff like that. So, if you're not a really big fan of role-playing, but you always wanted to give it a try, I recommend Dark Heresy. It's a simple system. The percentile system, I find, is the easiest one to catch onto and understand. And it's so easy to learn how to build a character that I think you'll enjoy the game a lot more if you've never played a role-playing game before, but you've played, like, Warhammer or something. It's a great step into another aspect of tabletop gaming. And that's really all I can say. If you want to check out the closer detailed picture of the Librarian, or if you want to see the model I made for my girlfriend for the game, check out our Facebook. I'm going to post the pictures on there. And if you have any awesome epic stories about characters you've played in Dark Heresy, post a comment, let us know about it, or a video response, because we're always interested in hearing about new different characters and stuff that happens to other players in the community. So, and also again, if you haven't followed us on Twitter yet, do check us out there. That way you can find out when episodes of Touching Base are filmed, when battle reports are happening, and get basically a head start of what's going to be coming up later in the week, if some big event that's happening. So, that is all for right now, and until next time, Fearless Gamers, take care!